Hey guys, tonight we're going to slip back in time to 1492 when you drag your feet through the dusty streets of Toledo, trembling at the edge of a sudden cultural rupture. You probably won't survive a single bite of some of these hyper-spiced breads without reaching for a tall tumbler of cool water seriously, like chugging hot sauce on an empty stomach. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, drop a comment with your local location and time. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing in the narrow alley behind a tanner's workshop, the air thick with the smell of leather, mingling with faint traces of sandalwood and clove. The year 1492, the defining era when Ferdinand and Isabella's decree expelled Sephardic Jews from Spain. You hear hushed whispers that more than 200,000 souls were forced to leave their homes or convert on the spot, setting off a diaspora that would ripple through centuries. You feel the weight of that decree settling on your shoulders like a heavy wool cloak, itchy and unfamiliar. And you think, wow, forced relocation isn't exactly a vacation package, is it? As Jewish families packed their belongings, mostly textiles, a few copper pots, and perhaps the occasional cherished spice chest, you can almost taste the panic. Cinnamon sticks scented the air, carried in small bundles tied with twine, while peppercorns rattled in burlap sacks. Those spices weren't merely culinary afterthoughts. They were living memories of golden-era Cordoba banquets, of festive Shabbat dinners with friends and family. So when the expulsion order fell, these bakers faced a rude awakening. How do you celebrate new moons when you've lost your ovens, your markets, and your congregations? Your guide tonight is a weary but determined baker named Miriam, whose hands are rough with flour and lines of sorrow. She's forced to set up a makeshift bakery on a rattling wooden cart. Imagine a food truck medieval style, but without air conditioning or Bluetooth. You probably won't survive more than a minute in those rattling conditions, but desperation breeds creativity. She mixes flour, water, yeast, and salt, then hesitates. No knives, no mortars. So she crushes leftover coriander seeds under her toe against a stone slab. Concrete foot crushing, not exactly the Michelin star technique, but it works. You watch as Miriam folds in the crushed coriander, then sprinkles in saffron threads, 6 tiny golden strands that smelled like burnt honey and sunshine. That saffron came from the fields of Granada before the fall, harvested by Jewish women on their knees, singing lullabies to soothe aching backs. Few people know that saffron was once so prized that some rabbis compared it to a fine perfume used in temple rituals in Jerusalem. Historians still debate whether saffron's original biblical mentions refer to the exact same crocus sativus we use today, or to an entirely different plant. Regardless, those golden threads became symbols of hope, weaving continuity between past and uncertain future. As the dough rests, you can feel the pulse of an ancient rhythm, the lunar calendar ticking down to the new moon Rosh Chodesh, when women would gather in candlelit courtyards to bless the month. Spiced breads were central. They tasted faintly of memory of home kitchens where laughter bounced off whitewashed walls, and of children chasing glowing moths attracted to oil lamps. The razor-sharp bitterness of Aleppo pepper contrasted with the warm sweetness of honey drizzle, creating a flavor you'd swear could open tear ducts even in the toughest of skeptics. At the market stalls, Christian merchants eyed the cart warily. They knew these awkward newcomers were smuggling more than just bread. They carried customs prayers and songs encoded in every loaf. One vendor, a portly fellow with a stained tunic, offered to trade a loaf of coarse barley bread for Miriam's spiced flatbread. She smiled politely, but declined like refusing a Netflix password from a neighbor. She held on to her traditions fiercely. After all, giving away one loaf was like handing over a piece of her people's identity. You lean closer, inhaling the heady aroma as the bread slides from the wooden peel into a sizzling brick oven. Camel dung embers crackle beneath, releasing a faint earthy tang. You hadn't expected, some say it, imparts a subtle smokiness, like a gourmet barbecue. Others say it's just medieval desperation. You wrinkle your nose, but admit it's oddly comforting, the same way stepping into a campfire's glow feels warm against autumn's chill. A strange fact. Medieval ovens sometimes used dried camel dung because it burned hotter and longer than wood, but also because lumber was expensive. Who knew your morning bagel had a history so exotic? Minutes later, Miriam pulls the loaf free. It's shaped like a slender crescent, the curve echoing the new moon itself, flecked with powdered sugar that catches the fading daylight. You press a fingertip into the crust, crunchy, but yielding like biting into bubble wrap, if bubble wrap tasted like warm honey and ginger. You taste the nuanced cinnamon's warmth, supported by ginger's zinginess's licorice whisper and coriander's earthy hum. 3 light jokes pop to mind. It's spicier than your aunt's political opinions on Thanksgiving, more layered than your last therapy session, and definitely more communal than binge-watching Netflix alone. In that moment, you realize that every ingredient tells a story. The cinnamon reminds you of caravan trails through Anatolia, while the ginger whispers of tropical isles far to the south. Historians still debate whether ginger first reached Iberia via Arab traders or through direct sea routes. But either way, it ended up here binding communities together like invisible threads. As you tear off another chunk of the loaf, it's as if you're shredding centuries-old history with your bare hands. Above the sliver of the new moon hangs in the indigo sky, barely visible but profoundly present. You bite again, and the spices bloom on your tongue, echoing the resilience of a people who refuse to let exile erase their heritage. And as you lean back, the odd early modern food truck rattles down the road, wheels creaking like a lullaby. You close your eyes, already lulled by the gentle crackle of embers and the promise of more stories to come. As the embers' soft crackle from the makeshift brick oven fades into the background, you drift upward with your thoughts to something older than exile itself, the ancient Jewish lunar calendar. You feel the gentle pull of time's rhythm under your skin, like the faint thrum of a distant drum calling you to look skyward. Imagine yourself standing in a dim courtyard just after sunset, the air cool against your cheeks, peppered with the scent of myrtle and cedar. Above you, the sky transforms from cotton candy pink to indigo velvet, and there in that vast expanse, the new moon's sliver appears subtle, elegant and commanding in its restraint. You lean in almost too close because you're itching to know how these earliest observers counted months by sight, not by swiping calendars on smartphones. No push notifications back then, just ancient scribes perched on rooftop ledges, peering through polished copper tubes, whispering, "I see it," to their companions. Their whispers carried on the breeze like an ASMR track for the pious soft shh sounds, the gentle rustle of parchment, and the distant bleat of goats awaiting their evening feed. You probably won't survive a week without Wi-Fi, but these observers thrived on anticipation, fueling entire communities with a single celestial wink. Travel with your mind's eye to Jerusalem, where the Sanhedrin once convened on the Temple Mount. Two trustworthy witnesses, perhaps a farmer named Elijah and his neighbor Miriam, would stand before the court describing the moon's curve in meticulous detail. Their testimony decided when Rosh Chodesh would be proclaimed, unleashing a tide of candlelit processions and spiced bread feasts. A popular historical moment here in 3 Avestan CE Hillel II famously instituted a fixed calendar to avoid the chaos of endless moon site debates, streamlining Rosh Chodesh observances for communities scattered by Roman roads. Historians still debate whether this shift sank oral traditions or preserved unity across the diaspora. You inhale the night air flavored faintly with burning olive oil from distant lampposts, and you almost taste the ceremonial incense frankincense, a resin so precious that traders once offered it as tribute to emperors. Here's a strange fact few people know. In some desert towns, they lit bonfires atop 7 hills at the new moon, transmitting a rudimentary signal fire network across miles, like a medieval version of Morse code. You can almost hear the crackle of each blaze as messages leapfrog from one mountaintop to the next, whispering the month has begun. You would need a serious data plan to replicate that today, and you'd still miss the drama of waiting for the next flame to flare. As the calendar's structure takes shape in your mind, alternating 29 and 30-day months, an extra month dropped in 7 times every 19-year cycle, you begin to appreciate the precision. It's as if someone invented leap years because, hey, watching trees grow wasn't enough excitement. The softer sounds of stone walls breathing out residual heat mingle with distant laughter. You sense women gathering in candlelit courtyards, their voices low and soothing, reciting blessings over bowls of pomegranate seeds and bitter herbs. The delicate clink of glasses filled with sweet wine punctuates their chant, each note echoing in the stillness. Imagine that across the Mediterranean in 10th century Cairoan North African Jews marked Rosh Chodesh with green dates dipped in honey and dusted with nigella seeds. Even today, nigella's slightly oniony tang surprises your palate. Who guessed onion aroma could be so celestial? You remember the earlier spice card and realize that cinnamon and ginger aren't the only players here. Black caraway writes its own ancient poem on your tongue. Different communities adapted the calendar rituals, yet all tuned into that same lunar heartbeat, like musicians playing variations on a timeless melody. Glance at your phone's calendar app. Does it feel a bit flat now? You chuckle at the contrast, one tap, and you know every holiday. But you lose the tactile thrill of watching witnesses ascend hilltops, bristling with conviction to testify before a tribunal. A modern joke drifts through your mind. Your calendar update is ready. Please download to continue celebrating your heritage. No auto updates back then. Prophets and rabbis determined your schedule. The analog suspense must have been unbearable in a good way. Above, the new moon's crescent has thickened slightly like a cosmic bowl filling with hope and anticipation. You picture bakers everywhere pausing mid-knead, glancing skyward, marking the moment when their spices shift from everyday seasoning to sacred celebrants. You sense the unity of that ritual from dusty Spanish towns to sunburnt North African oases. All eyes climb to the heavens, hearts synchronized by a lunar oath. That soft glow above, paired with the subtle hiss of your evening breeze, lulls you deeper into the story's current. Below in your memory, Miriam's cart rolls forward, the scent of coriander and saffron trailing behind like a perfume. You feel the calendar's invisible threads weaving through her dough, each fold of bread echoing those lunar whispers. In the previous part, spices bridged past and present. Now the calendar itself becomes the loom stitching months into a tapestry of tradition. And as you exhale, you realize that time's gentle cadence, marked by that slender sliver of moon, carries you ever onward, deeper into history's embrace, while your senses remain anchored in the here and now. You lean back against a sun-warmed amphora barrel at the docks of Alexandria, and the first thing you notice is the heady perfume of cinnamon stick bundles mingling with the briny kiss of Mediterranean spray. You've drifted almost seamlessly from that tiny courtyard in Toledo and the hush of lunar observers straight on to a bustling harbor where wooden dhows and galleys bob in endless rhythm, their hulls groaning like slumbering whales. You breathe in deep, salty air spiced by cardamom pods, tucked into burlap sacks, black peppercorns rattling like loose change in a pockets. Picture yourself amid a caravan of camels trudging across Anatolian plains, their bells tinkling like a medieval jingle. No Spotify algorithm could replicate that earworm. You shoulder your pack heavy with things that smell like home-crushed nutmeg saffron threads tangled like mischievous fireflies, and a pouch of cloves that crackle under your fingertips. You probably won't survive a day on that trek. Your smartphone would drain faster than a camel at a desert oasis. But desperation fueled these traders for centuries, forging connections between empires with nothing but salt, spice, and swagger. In the early 13th century, under the Pax Mongolica, you watch as a silk-clad envoy leads a column of camels from Chang'an to Venice. This is the era of Marco Polo's epic trek and odyssey. That's part blockbuster adventure, part family vlog, and part, what's that weird smell? Historians still debate whether Polo overstated his heroics or quietly pocketed a few extra spice samples for personal use. But there's no question that his tales unleashed Europe's obsession with Eastern flavors. One sniff of nutmeg, and suddenly courtiers traded horse armor for mortar and pestle. You pivot to the square by the great bazaar of Constantinople, where merchants hawk jars of rose petals steeped in rosewater frankincense lumps shining like honeyed amber, and jars of the rarest fine long pepper extinct in some homelands and rediscovered through rumor. A popular historical moment unfolds as Venetian trader Marco Contarini triumphantly enters the city gates in 1261, signaling Byzantium's brief revival and bringing back more cloves and mace than you could shake a gavel at. You imagine him dining with the emperor, slipping cardamom into his goblet and cracking a joke. I traded my cousin's dowry for this talk about family drama, spicier than a ghost pepper. On the Anatolian plateau, you trek through spice caravans that move in caravanserais every 30 miles, inns guarded by Kurdish sentries and Persian cooks, whipping up lamb tagines perfumed with cumin and turmeric. You taste a spoonful earthy mustardy like licking a sun-baked riverbank and realize that some spices were so precious they served as currency nicknamed black gold. A few coins of pepper could free a serf or ransom a prince. Strange fact, in 17th century Europe, you could measure wealth in peppercorns until a market crash in Antwerp over-speculated on cinnamon stocks. Historians still debate whether that crash foreshadowed modern financial bubbles or just made French bakers panic buy nutmeg. You trudge onward, sand crunching beneath sandals, arriving at the port of Calicut on India's Malabar coast. Here, a sultan's fleet unloads giant wicker baskets of cardamom pearls, the pods cracking open like tiny pistols to unleash herbal fireworks. Local sailors joke that chewing cardamom cures everything from bad breath to boring conversations, though you suspect it wouldn't fix your last date, which sounded more disastrous than juggling flaming pineapples. You tuck a pod behind your ear, half to smell sweet and half, so the Sultan's guards don't catch you pilfering samples. Crossing to the Crimean coast, you join a flotilla bound for Kaffa, where Genoese traders squat beside sacks of star anise, a spice that smells suspiciously like licorice, impersonating a licorice imposter. You pinch a star-shaped pod, crush it, and the aroma hits like an ASMR crackle, a crisp, sweet pop that would make any YouTube host weep with delight. In that moment, you understand why Sephardic bakers hung on to these spices. They were edible relics of distant lands, tokens of daring voyages and empire-building duels. Meanwhile, back in Europe, Venetian ships navigate the dangerous Strait of Gibraltar in the 15th century, helmed by captains who would later inspire explorers like Columbus. Rumor has it, Columbus wasn't just chasing gold, but was really after the fabled Cinnamon Isles, though historians still debate whether he genuinely believed he'd find an entire island of cinnamon trees, or just wanted something to spice up his dinner parties. Either way, that slip of ambition set Europe on a headlong rush to Asia, slicing centuries off the spice route timeline, but also unleashing a dose of geopolitical chaos more tangled than your last relationship. At each stop along the way, Alexandria, Damascus, Baghdad, you glimpse how spices weren't just food additives, but diplomatic gifts. A Persian Shah sprinkled rose water over treaties. A Mamluk Sultan demanded ginger-laced sherbet as tribute. A Byzantine envoy embroidered spice pouches with gold thread. You can almost hear the rustle of silk and feel the weight of those pouches at your belt, an olfactory passport granting entree to palaces and potlucks alike. And all this movement taught Sephardic bakers to think globally long before global was a buzzword. When they settled in Ottoman Salonika, or Safed, they brought recipes cratered by centuries of travel, poofy hilalit, studded with nigella seeds from the Levant, loaves flecked with green cardamom that carried a whiff of Kerala's rainforests, and honeyed cakes rippling with maleb, the kernel of St. Lucy's cherries, so obscure that most people today wouldn't recognize it unless you served it in a latte. As you trace a path from Andalusia to Alexandria, to Calicut and back to Amsterdam's canal-side bake shops, you realize these trade routes wove a tapestry of taste that transcended borders. Every ship's manifest doubled as a cultural exchange program. Languages, customs, and jokes like asking if your meat stew was halal or haram were traded alongside jars of cloves. You feel like you've consumed not only spices, but the whispered stories of countless sailors, merchants, and bakers who believed that a single pinch of pepper could bridge worlds. In the previous part, you savored the clash of exile and innovation. Here, you've inhaled the vast expanse of trade routes that carried hope across deserts and oceans. Now, as the sun dips low and the sea breeze softens your shoulders, you're ready to see how those spices found their way into shapes and symbols, crescent loaves that mirror the new moon itself. You let out a contented sigh, and the faint slap of waves against the quay lulls you forward deeper into history's winding alleys, where every aroma tells a story waiting to be kneaded into dough. You settle onto a low stone bench in the courtyard as dusk deepens. The scent of rising dough swirls around you like a gentle caress. You press your fingertips into a ball of flour-dusted dough, feeling its elasticity yield under your touch, the same dough that in centuries past would be shaped into a perfect crescent. In this moment, you become the baker's apprentice, your hands dusted with tiny specks of cinnamon and ginger, coaxing the dough into its moon-like form. The hilalit, literally crescent, takes shape under your fingers, each curve echoing the sliver of new moon above. As you pinch the ends to complete the curve, you notice how the spices embedded in the dough glint like stardust flecks of nutmeg, catch the lamp's glow, and threads of saffron weave golden highlights through the pale wheat. You roll the crescent gently on the work surface, listening to that soft shiz of flour sliding beneath your palm, a medieval ASMR that would make any YouTube host weak in the knees. You probably won't survive a live stream with only a flower in the frame, but here the simplicity is its own spectacle. Flash forward to 1896, when Solomon Schechter unearthed the fabled Cairo Geniza in the Ben Ezra Synagogue at Old Cairo. Among discarded letters and rabbinic responsa, he found invoices detailing shipments of halalit-spiced crescent loaves sent from Fostat to Jewish communities across the Mediterranean. That discovery transformed our understanding of Sephardic baking traditions, illuminating a practice thought lost to time, a popular historical event, no question, but also one that feels almost cinematic. Dusty scrolls, hidden archives, and the thrill of finding secrets long buried beneath centuries of sand. You lift the shaped dough onto a wooden peel and brush its surface with beaten egg white, catching stray granules of sugar that sparkle like tiny stars. The brush strokes are deliberate. Too much glaze and the spices will slide off. Too little and the crust will dry chalky. It's like uploading the perfect thumbnail, one wrong move, and you lose clicks, or in this case, a perfectly balanced crumb. You slide the crescent into a brick oven where the heat showers it in dry, even warmth. A strange fact, some medieval bakers clandestinely crushed pearls or oyster shells into the glaze for an ethereal sheen, believing it would mimic moonlight itself, though it made for a rather crunchy surprise. The oven hisses as the halalit bakes, and you lean in to catch that subtle crackle, the bread exhaling as it transforms. Cinnamon's smoky warmth unfurls alongside ginger's bright zing, while anise whispers beneath, like a long-lost lullaby. You inhale deeply, realizing that a single breath here contains the aroma of centuries Andalusian spice markets, Anatolian caravanserais, and Ottoman court kitchens, all distilled into one delicate loaf. Historians still debate whether the crescent shape arose from Jewish astronomers' fascination with the waxing moon, or if it was borrowed from Islamic bread molds circulating in Andalusian bakeries. But either way, the result speaks for itself. As the hilalit browns to a honeyed gold, you see the community-gathered children cluster at the courtyard's edge, their laughter a soft percussion against the stone walls, while elders lean over low tables laden with olives, honey, and tea. A matron slices the loaf, revealing a tender crumb flecked with spice, each slice a perfect arc, replicating the moon's curve in miniature. You reach for a piece, and your teeth break the crust with a satisfying crunch, releasing a puff of steam that carries the scent of nutmeg and cardamom. 3 light jokes flit through your mind. It's spicier than your last family group chat, more layered than your most ambitious TikTok transition, and definitely more communal than solo midnight snacking. In the glow of oil lamps, you dip the hilalit into honey thick enough to hold its shape, and the syrup pools like liquid gold in the crook of the crescent. The sweetness balances the spices, creating flavor fireworks that pop on your tongue. You taste a note of clove, sharp and almost medicinal, followed by the soft hum of coriander and the distant warmth of black pepper. The effect is cozy yet adventurous, like swaddling yourself in a cashmere blanket while plotting a clandestine bakery heist. Watching the hilalit pass from hand to hand, you sense the unbroken thread linking this moment to those early new moon celebrations. Bakers centuries ago would rise before dawn, kneading by lantern light, so that by moonrise their spiced crescents would be ready for blessings. A strange fact in some villages, if the hilalit's ends failed to meet perfectly, bakers believed the moon would harbor ill will, hiding behind clouds for an extra night in protest. No pressure, right? Your hands still tingling from the tactile ritual, you lean back and let the courtyard symphony wash over you, murmured blessings in Ladino, the soft clink of tea glasses, and the hush as the community lifts its voices in a new moon hymn. You remember the earlier parts, exiles, hard birth, and calendars carved in sky, and realize that the hilalit is more than bread. It's a living emblem of resilience, hope, and celestial wonder. The hilalit's warm sweetness lingers as you drift into the next chapter. Above, the crescent moon glows faintly against the night, mirrored in the golden arc of your fingers. As you release the last crumb, you feel the dough's story settle inside you, like a gentle lullaby, carrying you closer to tomorrow's dawn and the promise of more tales kneaded into history's dough. You close your eyes and let the swirl of aromas carry you deeper into the courtyard as you lean over a low wooden table strewn with spice jars that glint under the oil lamp's glow. A pinch of cinnamon dust sifts through your fingers, releasing a warm, woody perfume that wraps around you like a cozy blanket. One of those you probably shouldn't wrap yourself in gym socks, but this is different moments. Cinnamon was prized not just for its sweetness, but for its symbolism. It stood for joy and sanctity, a spice fit for temple offerings and royal feasts alike. In fact, There's a popular historical moment when King Solomon supposedly received cinnamon as tribute from ships laden with treasure, though historians still debate whether that cinnamon came overseas or snuck through overland Arab caravans. You shift your weight and reach for a chunk of crystallized ginger, heavy and knobbly as a toddler's scribble. You snap a piece off and crush it between your palms, and your nose almost jumps out of your head as the piquant steam rises in a tiny explosion of warmth. Ginger's ritual meaning lean toward protection and vitality. You sprinkle its shards into dough to ward off evil spirits and to invigorate the body for the month ahead. A strange fact few people know: during the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215, pilgrims carried ginger root in their satchels to stave off motion sickness on mule-back journeys. Because medieval travel was about as smooth as a porcupine's breakfast. Your fingertips find the jar of star anise next to a cluster of spikes that looks like miniature metal gears. You crush one pod under your thumbnail, and the courtyard fills with a sweet licorice echo that feels like a lullaby for your nostrils. And this symbolized sweetness of speech and fellowship. It reminded celebrants that every word uttered under the new moon's blessing should be gentle and uplifting. Back in 1620, at the founding of the Mayflower colony, some settlers dipped new moon buns in anise syrup to celebrate hope in a harsh new world, an image so quaint it belongs on a collector's plate, yet oddly moving. Historians still debate whether those Plymouth bakers followed Sephardic recipes directly or adopted local herbs to mimic the flavor. You mix these spices in a small ceramic bowl, coaxing them together with a swirl of honey borrowed from the neighbor's comb. Honey itself carried its own significance, embodying sweetness for the coming month. So combining it with cinnamon's joy, ginger's protection, and anise's fellowship created more than flavor. It wove a tapestry of intentions. You probably won't survive if you tried multitasking like that today, checking your email while making artisanal bread, but these ancestral bakers mastered it with nothing but skill and fierce faith. As you blend the mixture, the lamplight catches on the oily glint of clove bits interspersed with your chosen trio, and you can't help but smile at the thought that medieval bakers sometimes included cloves to symbolize the sealing of sacred vows. You remember that earlier part of your journey when you crushed coriander underfoot. This is a far gentler method, a nod to the rhythm of hearth and home. You roll the spices into a paste, the texture slick and almost hypnotic under your fingertips, like mixing a paint palette for an uncanny masterpiece. Pulling a fresh crescent loaf from the cooling rack, you press your thumbs into its center, coaxing a shallow well perfect for holding that ritual paste. The dough springs back, slowly protesting your intrusion like a cat summoned from a sunny nap. You probably won't survive such rough handling if you were a professional pastry chef. But here, the slight imperfection is part of the charm. Each dent is a fingerprint of devotion. You smear the spice paste into the well, the bold aromas bursting forth in a sudden fanfare. Cinnamon's warmth blooms like a hearth fire. Ginger's zing jabs playfully at your senses. Anise's sweet whisper hums under it all. You fold the dough's edge over the filling ceiling in the blend of intentions like a letter locked tight. A popular historical anecdote tells of Rabbi Isaac Luria in 16th century Safed, who insisted that each new moon loaf include all three spices to symbolize body, mind, and spirit. The story feels legendary, almost too perfect. But historians still debate whether Luria's directive was original or a later embellishment by his students seeking deeper meaning in Kabbalistic practice. You slide the completed loaf onto a cedar plank and carry it to the communal table, its scent weaving through the gathering like an invisible storyteller. The assembled families lean forward, eyes bright with anticipation, each person eager to taste the symbolic tapestry you've just crafted. A matriarch lifts her hand, murmuring a blessing, and you can almost see the spice-infused intentions tethering themselves to the flickering flames of the candles overhead. Suddenly, a playful breeze drifts down the alley, scattering a few cinnamon dust motes like fireflies. You reach up instinctively as if to catch a volcanic spark, because cinnamon can be that dramatic when it floats free. One of the children giggles, pointing at your startled expression, and you think I probably won't survive being outed as a spice weirdo in front of a crowd. But their laughter is warm and inclusive, the very fellowship a niece promised, and you realize that this moment shared humorous sensory is the true essence of the ritual. You tear the loaf in two, revealing the swirl of amber paste inside. Each slice is a miniature moon, brimming with the hues of sunset and dusted lightly with sugar that shimmers like distant stars. You pop a corner into your mouth, and the flavors hit you in sequence: the gentle embrace of cinnamon, the bold kick of ginger, and the comforting hum of anise, all singing in harmony like a well-rehearsed madrigal. 3 light jokes bounce through your mind. It's zestier than your morning cold shower puncher, than your best stand-up routine, and sweeter than that time you won a compliment unexpectedly. As the courtyard settles into contented murmurs, you take a final breath of the spice-laden air and let the symbolism sink in: cinnamon for joy, ginger for protection, anise for fellowship, and honey to bind them together with sweetness. A strange fact slides in quietly. In medieval Venice, some bakeries colored their new moon breads with safflower petals to represent the rising sun alongside the crescent moon, creating a visual metaphor that few outside that city ever adopted. It's a reminder that symbolism can be as regional as language, and yet every community finds a way to let spices speak for them. Above the silver sliver of moon hangs steady its light, pale yet certain. You lean back against the table chest full of fragrance, and your heart full of connection. In the previous part, you shaped the hilalit itself. Here, you've infused it with intentional meaning, turning flour and water and yeast into a living prayer. And as you exhale, the courtyard sounds: soft conversations, gentle laughter, the distant tinkle of a water jar carry you onward toward the next chapter, where ovens themselves will reveal secrets of fire and fuel that baked these spiced wonders. You step away from the courtyard's low tables and follow the trail of smoke to an iron-bound door inset into a thick stone wall, its surface radiating heat like a sunburned arm. Behind it lies the heart of medieval baking, an immense domed oven whose belly glows with embers. You reach out a cautious hand. Seriously, you probably won't survive more than a second without melting your fingernails off, and you press your palm against the cool metal latch. Astonished at the furnace's promise of transformation, raw dough to golden crescent humble grains to communal comfort. Pushing the door open, you're hit by a wave of heat so intense it roars against your lungs, like inhaling a dragon's breath filtered through a barbecue pit. The air trembles, scented with charred wood and something earthier, dried camel dung crushed into dense briquettes that burned slow and hot. In the Levant and Andalusia, camel dung was prized fuel that burned longer than olive wood and imparted a faint smoky sweetness like a Kamado grill with a medieval twist. A strange fact few people know: some bakers preferred camel dung embers because they believed the odor warded off mice, turning ovens into rodent-free sanctuaries, a perk no mousetrap had ever mentioned. Your eyes adjust to the gloom inside the oven chamber, where glowing coals cluster in the back, radiating orange pulses against soot-black walls. You stoop to sweep away ash with a curved iron peel, exposing a smooth baking surface hot enough to sear leather. You probably won't survive a single minute barefoot on that hearth, but the ancients thought nothing of sliding in candlelit loaves with bare wooden peels, no silicone gloves, no temperature gauge. It's like sending your pizza into a 900-degree wood-fired oven without a warning label. Flash forward to 1099, in the midst of the First Crusade siege of Jerusalem, when Crusader bakers pressed loaves against the interior walls of portable taboon ovens, fueling them with donkey and camel dung. They baked all night, lit only by torchlight, rationing bread to feed a besieging army. A popular historical event, yes, but also one rich with culinary drama. Knights swapped half their rations for a hot crescent, huddling over campfires like a down-market cookout. Historians still debate whether those taboons were genuine mobile ovens or simply stationary pits disguised by canvas. But either way, the smell of dung smoke must have felt like an aromatic battlefield bugle. You climb onto a low bench outside to catch your breath, chest heaving from the furnace's furnace-like welcome. The courtyard around you is silent now, as if the community holds its breath in solidarity, waiting for the baker to emerge. You recall in the previous part how you pinched dough into crescents. Here you're witnessing the crucible that completes the alchemy. No gentle wood fires here. This is molten heat, sculpting bread at the edge of combustion. It's less artisan hearth and more culinary crucible, as dramatic as any modern patisserie's showpiece oven reveal. As you lean against the cool stone, you notice the oven's dome bears carved symbols: a lamb, a shofar, and a small crescent moon, all scorched into the bricks. These glyphs serve as both prayer and brand, a blessing over each loaf and a signature declaring, "Here bakes the Crescent Guild." In 14th century Cairo, bakers' guilds stamped their marks on communal ovens, much like modern logos on pizza boxes, except, less recyclable. A strange fact: some guilds required apprentices to bake their first loaf blindfolded, believing it would heighten the senses. Talk about trusting your gut. You push yourself up and peer through the oven's mouth again, tempted to slide in another batch of hilalit. The metal peel feels like an extension of your arm, as if you've become part of this ancient assembly line. A drop of sweat slides down your temple, exactly the kind of adrenaline rush you'd pay extra for at a theme park, but here it costs only a dusting of flour and a dash of bravery. 3 light jokes surface in your mind. This is hotter than your laptop's CPU on a crypto mining spree, more intense than your last spin class, and definitely more dramatic than your microwave popcorn timer. Suddenly, a hand clamps on your shoulder. Miriam, the baker from earlier, emerges triumphant, her apron smeared with soot and starch. She holds an oversized pair of tongs, and in them the newest hilalits glow like amber crescents sliced from the sun. The oven's roar recedes as you taste the spicy warmth on your fingertips, cinnamon and ginger notes amplified by that smoky dung tang. It's a harmony of fire and flavor, a sensory symphony no modern gas range could replicate. As the loaves cool, you gather them into woven baskets and carry them back to the courtyard, each one still emanating a faint ember glow. Children cluster close eyes wide as if you're carrying torches instead of bread. You distribute the crescents with gentle caution, marveling at how heat and habitat shape this ritual. Without ovens fueled by camel dung, the hilalit might never have tasted quite so wild, so alive. Above the new moon's sliver has grown into a delicate bowl, as if the heavens themselves applauded your feat of culinary endurance. In the previous part, you learned symbolism within the spices. Now you felt the pulse of fire that bakes them into legacy. You stand by the warming embers, chest full of heat and heart, full of wonder, ready to follow the story into the domains of hidden converso blends and courtly intrigue that await just beyond the oven door. You slip through the ornate archway into the imperial kitchens of Topkapi Palace, the air shifting from the earthy tang of courtyard ovens to a heady bouquet of rose water and saffron so potent it feels like being wrapped in a silk scarf, scented by sunlight. The walls gleam with copper pots and gleaming brass trays, all polished to a mirror finish that could double as a selfie reflector, though you probably won't survive attempting a palace selfie without a royal guard's permission. Your senses reel as two cooks in velvet-trimmed vests swirl ladles through simmering cauldrons, their hands moving in choreography worthy of a TikTok dance routine. You follow their lead to a massive marble table strewn with stacks of gold-hued saffron threads, the petals so fine they resemble crimson whispers. Saffron here is red gold, in every sense worth more per ounce than most gemstones, and historically reserved for sultans' banquets. You pinch a few threads and crush them between your fingertips. Immediately, the kitchen brightens as if the spice itself is a miniature sunrise. They stir the crushed saffron into milky yogurt, creating a marinade that glows like molten sunset. A popular historical moment flashes by in 1539 during the grand reception of the French ambassador Jean de la Forêt. Ottoman chefs served saffron-marinated lamb that so dazzled the envoy, he reported back that I have never tasted the sun itself, a compliment historians still debate whether it was genuine awe or diplomatic flattery. A pot of rice simmers beside you, each grain tinted the palest rose, and you breathe in the floral sweetness mingling with buttery cloves. Rose water here isn't an afterthought. It's the scent of celebration distilled from hundreds of thousands of petals harvested at dawn. You dip a spoon into the pilaf and taste how the rose's soft perfume wraps around the rice like a lullaby, and you think, this is more photogenic than any latte art I've tried to recreate. You probably won't survive a single barista training session after spoiling your palate with this level of elegance. Across the table, a baker dusts pale dough with ground pistachios and hammers in a swirl of cardamom, but his centerpiece is a tray of small domed pastries soaked in rose-infused syrup. Each one looks like a miniature mosque dome, the syrup glistening under the lantern light. As you lean in, you almost feel the weight of centuries these pastries were once carried through palace corridors on silver trays, samples of generosity offered to visiting dignitaries. A strange fact, few people know early Ottoman cookbooks from the 15th century prescribed rose water not only for flavor, but as a mild preservative long before refrigeration. So you could argue that palace chefs invented gourmet, ready-to-eat meals centuries ahead of meal prep boxes. You watch a senior chef lift an ornate kettle of rosewater syrup and drizzle its pink-laced sweetness over a pile of fried dough balls. The syrup flows like liquid blush, saturating crisp layers until they sigh with fragility. You reach to catch a drizzle on your fingertip. It's like tasting a rose garden after rain, delicate yet unmistakably present. 3 light jokes flit through your mind. It's more Instagram-worthy than your brunch avocado toast, sweeter than the compliments you wish you'd gotten in high school, and definitely more regal than your last microwave Pop-Tart. Nearby, another cook unveils a large platter of tiny saffron-tinged breads shaped like stars and crescents arranged in celestial patterns. Each loaf is a tribute to the new moon, its golden hue echoing the pale curve overhead. The chef tells you that these breads were once reserved for the imperial harem's new moon celebrations, a secret banquet where sultanas whispered poetry while nibbling spiced loaves. Historians still debate whether those gatherings were lavish parties or discreet councils of power. Either way, the breads were code communicating allegiance through subtle differences in spice blends. As you move through the kitchen, the symphony of simmering, sizzling, and clinking intensifies. You brush a fingertip against a simmering stew of lamb and apricots, the tart fruit bursting like tiny suns in your mouth. The saffron warms the meat's richness, while rosewater teases out floral notes that linger like a whispered compliment. A strange fact surfaces: Ottoman naval expeditions carried barrels of rosewater to prevent scurvy long before citrus became the universal cure. So those seafarers were effectively drinking fancy skincare at sea. Hands now dusted with golden spice, you step back toward the courtyard's edge, feeling as though you've carried away a piece of Topkapi itself. The palace's marble columns and jeweled mosaics have nothing on this kitchen's alchemy here. Simple grains and petals transform into edible treasures fit for emperors. Above the new moon's crescent peaks, through a lattice window, a silent witness to the rituals unfolding below. In the previous part, you felt the furnaces roar. Here, you've tasted the luxury of empire and witnessed how spices became symbols of power. You pause for a final breath of that rose and saffron-laced air chest, swelling with warmth and wonder. The cooks straighten their aprons and nod in approval, their faces flushed by the hearth's heat and the glow of achievement. As the community beyond these walls prepares for tonight's new moon feast, you steel yourself for what comes next. Secret spice blends hidden by conversos in Iberian kitchens. A covert culinary code written in turmeric and sumac. You close your eyes, letting the palace's last amber echoes fade, and you drift toward the next chapter where survival itself depended on blending in. You slip into a shadowed kitchen in Toledo once owned by the Rodriguez family, now conversos, who outwardly attend Mass, yet secretly knead dough for Rosh Chodesh, under cover of moonless nights. The air is thick with the sharp tang of turmeric and smoky paprika spices they dared not label Jewish for fear of Inquisition informants. You probably won't survive a single sniff of that clandestine blend without feeling a surge of adrenaline. Imagine inhaling an Olbus oil patch disguised as dinner seasoning. In the previous part, you savored palace splendor. Here, you taste the grit of survival, where every pinch of spice is a whisper of faith. At midnight, you watch Doña Esther, a petite woman in a rosary-beaded apron, brush strands of saffron into simmering olive oil. The golden threads sizzle and curl, releasing a faint aroma like petrichor after rain, only richer with a hint of smoke that reminds you of wood stoves in family cabins. This saffron substitute uses turmeric dyed with a dab of red wine, a ruse so clever that even seasoned spice inspectors often tip their hats in confusion. A strange fact few people know. Some converso bakers mixed achayote seeds with paprika to replicate saffron's hue, because real saffron carried the stigma of Jewish exoticism. You lean closer, letting the heady scent of smoked paprika, cumin, and coriander fill your nostrils. It's like a covert perfume that says, "I'm kosher, but don't ask too many questions." You pinch a bit and crush it between your fingers, the paprika's sweet smoky heat blooming like a hidden bonfire in a forest glade. In 1478, when Pope Sixtus IV granted Ferdinand and Isabella authority to establish the Spanish Inquisition, families like the Rodriguez had to bury poppy seeds and caraway roots in holy water to keep them from prying eyes. Historians still debate whether women hid spice jars in church confessionals or carried them in hollowed rosaries. Either way, the ingenuity sparkles brighter than any cathedral chandelier. As you stir this secret blend into a stiff dough of semolina and water, you can hear the muted footfalls of patrolling alguacils on the cobblestone street outside. Each footstep reverberates like a warning drum urging you to work quickly. You press the dough into small round loaves, then make tiny slits on top so the spice swirl peeks through like a shy confession. The slit pattern resembles a six-pointed star, just discreet enough that you risk discovery if a zealous officer knows his geometry. A popular historical moment comes to mind in 1499. The famed Toledo friar Torquemada famously outlawed any bread with suspicious aromas, effectively criminalizing countless family recipes. You slide the loaves into a low, smoky hearth fueled by almond shells, an alternative chosen because olive pits left black tar residue that risked revealing the spice's true color. Almond shells hiss and pop like pink champagne in a thief's celebration. The dough absorbs the subtle nuttiness and a faint whiff of stone fruit from the shell smoke, lending the bread an almost sacramental quality. You touch the hearth's rim, feeling heat radiate through your fingertips. No modern oven mitt here, just courage and calloused hands. 3 light jokes flick through your mind. It's spicier than the latest political tweet, sneakier than your high school sleepover snack stash, and definitely more dramatic than your last kitchen disaster. Outside you hear the church bells toll for matins, a reminder that daylight and scrutiny approaches. You quickly grab the cooling loaves, arranging them on a wooden board carved with discreet Hebrew glyphs. The glyphs read Rosh Chodesh in code ribbons of spice. Form the letters. If you tilt your head and squint just right, a strange fact slides into your awareness. Some conversos painted their breadboards with lemon juice and dusted them with ash to mask the Hebrew inscriptions, a trick so adept that only candlelight revealed the hidden script. You step into the courtyard where other families stand in whispered circles lit by guttering torches. Doña Esther passes around slices of the spiced loaves, each taste a clandestine affirmation of identity. The cumin's earthiness grounds you. The smoked paprika's warmth ignites courage. The coriander's floral citrus hum whispers continuity with ancestors long gone. a sentence of solemn importance. Historians still debate whether these hidden blends sustained the community more than the prayers themselves, or simply offered a comforting reminder of home. As you bite into the loaf, the spices bloom on your tongue against a backdrop of semolina's coarse texture, like eating tapestry woven by exiles. You glance upward, but the sky is overcast. The new moon remains invisible, yet the shared ritual is no less potent in darkness. It's a sensory secret handshake passed between generations, a flavor-coded covenant that outlasts persecution's fury. Before dawn, you help conceal the remaining loaves under stacks of daily bread meant for Christian neighbors who remark on the new rustic flavor without suspecting a thing. You probably won't survive a single betrayal here, so silence is your shield, seasoning your lips as surely as salt flavors a stew. The warm spice residue clings to your palms like a talisman, a subtle reminder that faith can thrive even when masked by fear. In the hush of that pre-dawn hour, you stand shoulder to shoulder with fellow conversos, sharing crumb-laden smiles as the first pale glow of day teases the horizon. Behind you, the hidden glyphs on the board catch a stray torchlight, glowing faintly like embers of defiance. And as you fold your hands one over the other, palm on palm, you feel that even in exile and secrecy, community and ritual cannot be entirely extinguished. You inhale deeply, tasting smoke and spice and survival, and you sense that history's next twist awaits just beyond the looming shadows of Inquisition adaptation. You slip through a gilded hallway into the heart of Queen Isabella's royal kitchens, where the air is heady with the scent of caramelizing sugar-toasted almonds and something intriguingly floral rosewater, perhaps. The massive hearth fire crackles like a whispering conspirator, casting flickering shadows across copper cauldrons that gleam like watchful eyes. You probably won't survive a single misstep here, one false move, and you'll end up with a face full of flour or a singed sleeve, but the thrill of proximity to power is almost intoxicating. Your guide, a stooped master baker named Rodrigo, waves you closer to a vast wooden table, piled high with golden loaves and ivory-hued cakes, dusted in powdered sugar. These confections aren't ordinary treats. They're rumored to conceal coded prayers and tiny nods to Jewish tradition. As you draw near, you inhale the sweet warmth, honeyed dough blended with cinnamon, ginger, and cardamom, each spice chosen to echo a temple ritual disguised under Christian festivities. A popular historical moment unfolds in your mind in late 1491. After the fall of Granada, Isabella hosted a lavish court banquet to celebrate victory. The very banquet where these spiced cakes first appeared, according to legend. You lean forward to watch Rodrigo slice into a domed cake, revealing a swirl of pistachio paste and a hidden sprinkling of nigella seeds. The seeds glint like midnight stars against pale crumb tokens of a heritage that danger demanded be obscured. You pinch one between your thumbnail and forefinger, its oniony warmth erupts on your tongue, playful yet defiant. You sense that each cake is a coded communiqué, a discreet "we're still here" folded into every bite. Historians still debate whether these nigella-laced swirls were intended as overt symbols or subtle succor for conversos in the royal court. As the cake's steam curls around your fingers, you notice the lofty stone arch above you is inlaid with carved reliefs of pomegranates, a fruit rich with Jewish symbolism of abundance and unity. Nearby, a servant ladles spiced quince compote into delicate porcelain cups, the ruby red fruit collapsing into syrupy ribbons that catch the lamplight. You dip a spoon in and taste the compote's sweet tart tang, reminded that quince was often served alongside hilalit during new moon feasts. The resemblance feels intentional, a strategic reminder of shared ritual cloaked in courtly opulence. Rodrigo beckons you to a simmering cauldron where almonds roast in honey and orange blossom water. He stirs its thick contents with a carved olive wood paddle, and the scent of orange blossom drifts over you like perfumed confetti. You probably won't survive a day without nose plugs if all your meals smell this heady. But here, it enhances the moment. Royal kitchens were sensory theaters after all. A strange fact drifts through your mind. One curious account from an ambassador's diary mentions bite-sized almond confections spiked with saffron so golden they were said to rival the queen's crown jewels in luster. You step aside as Rodrigo unveils the centerpiece, a towering spiced wedding cake molded in concentric tiers, each layer infused with pecans, honey, and a whisper of clove. The tiers rise like a spiced ziggurat, crowned with sugared sugar plum figures. This cake was reportedly served at the marriage of Isabella's daughter in 1497, a grand affair that cemented a political alliance with Portugal. You catch a fleeting glimpse of sunlight through a narrow window, golden dust motes drifting like tiny courtiers in a festive procession. Behind the scenes, you overhear hushed conversation among the queen's ladies in waiting. They speak in code. "Did you sample the crescent loaf?" one whispers. "I slipped in extra allspice," another replies. You realize they refer to the hilalit tradition repurposed here as courtly pastry. It's as if the entire kitchen has become a secret synagogue, each spice an unspoken prayer. You chuckle inwardly at the contrast, a glittering royal court playing host to clandestine rituals beneath the swirl of sugar, like a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek with breadcrumbs. You lean against a marble pillar etched with fleur-de-lis motifs and allow the warmth of the kitchen to settle around you. In the previous part, you navigated shadowy converso kitchens under midnight torches. Now you stand at the very epicenter of power, where survival meant mastery of both flavor and subterfuge. A servant offers you a small spiced cookie called mantecados, shaped like a flower petal and dusted in lard-based crumble. Its crumb melts on your tongue, leaving a warming trace of cinnamon and a fleeting hint of lemon zest. Suddenly, there's a flurry of activity as a royal messenger arrives with dispatches from the Spanish Inquisition. Rodrigo quickly hides a tray of almond cakes beneath a stack of buttery rolls. You feel your pulse quicken. You probably won't survive more than a minute under inquisitorial scrutiny. But the Queen's authority shields you. These kitchens operate under Isabella's direct patronage. Her protection, however tenuous, offers a narrow safe harbor. You watch as Rodrigo returns to his spice chest, a polished walnut box with hidden compartments. From one shallow drawer, he retrieves a pinch of ground mace, its aroma bright and nutmeg-like, yet more floral. He sprinkles it atop a braided loaf, muttering, "For clarity and courage." Mace was said to ward off nightmares and sharpen the mind, a psychological bulwark against fear. A strange fact in some western Andalusian towns, bakers claimed that adding mace to Rosh Chodesh breads granted prophetic dreams, though local clergy frowned on such mystical claims. You pause at a table where courtiers sample the array of sweets, their expressions ranging from delight to puzzlement as they debate which flavor notes dominate. You catch a snippet. This tastes of cinnamon, but something else, like lavender. They won't guess lavender or rosewater because those scents were read as feminine or foreign. But those flavors linger, a subtle nod to Jewish women who once baked under these stones. You inhale deeply, tasting the complexity, saffron's warmth, rosewater's shimmer, cardamom's cool bite, and nigella's shadowy whisper. Above, the new moon's slender arc crowns the sky outside, barely visible through the kitchen's narrow windows. You feel the cycle turning from exile's hardship to clandestine survival to dazzling courtly display. These cakes aren't just sugar and spice, they're vessels of memory, tradition, and defiance passed hand to hand beneath loyal eyes. You take a final bite of that almond honey confection and let its warmth anchor you. As the Queen's trumpet sound a distant call, you slip away from the royal kitchens, your senses still tingling with spiced echoes. In your mind, the layers of palace intrigue merge with the earlier chapters, from camel dung ovens to saffron courts to hidden conversa blends. And as you step back into the cool corridor, you feel the weight of history's secret, that even in the halls of power, the simple act of baking could become a quiet revolution. You slip through a narrow arch into a low-ceilinged kitchen tucked behind the parish church, where the scent of smoked paprika and sweet safflower drifts like a guilty secret. You probably won't survive more than a few breaths here if you're squeamish about subterfuge. This is the crucible, where bakers rebranded Jewish exoticism as virtuous Christian fare. The only light comes from a single iron sconce, and each flicker casts dancing shadows that feel as conspiratorial as the recipes you're about to witness. Here, the Rodriguez family apprentices have traded turmeric for safflower petals crushed into a rose-tinted powder, marketing it as St. Teresa's joy. You pinch a handful of the fine dust and let it dust your palm. It smells faintly of damp earth and candied orange rind, more floral than fake saffron, but close enough to fool a distracted inspector. A popular historical moment flashes through your mind. In 1539, Pope Paul III condemned the use of pagan colors in church celebrations, prompting bakers to rename safflower Christ's blossom. Historians still debate whether that rebranding was a pragmatic dodge or a genuine act of devotion masquerading as survival. You hear footsteps in the hallway and lean close to the rough-hewn table, your elbow nudging a mortar and pestle. A spicy blend simmers in a pewter bowl, cumin seeds roasting in olive oil, until they pop like startled popcorn, bay leaves slipping in to add a woody whisper and just a pinch of black pepper, ground so fine you think it was ground marble dust. This concoction is labeled Holy Jubilee Dust, sold to devout pilgrims as a digestive aid for post-fast feasts. You taste a grain that hits like a medieval espresso shot, bright and biting enough to wake the dead or at least your great-great-grandparents. Behind you, Doña Esther wraps a loaf in cloth, stamped with a painted cross, the stroke so confident you'd swear a monk himself did the work. The cloth reads Pan de San Isidro, honoring the patron saint of farmers, yet the loaf's flavor carries coriander's citrus hum, a whisper of home no Christian saint ever claimed. You probably won't survive the cognitive dissonance if you try to reconcile paprika and coriander under a single banner, but these bakers mastered the alchemy. Your guide, young Matteo, plucks a sprig of fresh rosemary from a muddy pot and crushes it between his fingers. The herb's piney aroma blossoms in the cramped space like a chapel incense offering. He stirs it into a batter made of barley flour and honey, then shapes it into small trefoils, 3-lobe charms that mirror the Trinity. This pastry is touted as Trinity Tarts, a sweet snack for festival days. A strange fact few people know: some Inquisition-era bakeries dyed rosemary needles with iron oxide to turn them rust red, believing the color symbolized Christ's passion, an impressive DIY project that predated modern food coloring by centuries. You lean back against the stone-walled chest, fluttering as the foot traffic outside grows louder. Pilgrims shuffle in, drawn by the aroma of nutmeg and cinnamon, subtly tucked into secrets beneath a veneer of church-appropriate spices. They hand over coins clasped in prayerful palms, eager for a taste of sanctified sweetness. 3 light jokes drift through your head. This is more elaborate than your last craft cocktail, sneakier than your neighborhood's secret coffee spot, and definitely more layered than your favorite gaming loot box. In one corner, a battered ledger lists black bread of St. Benedict, with a notation contains sumac and caraway. Sumac's tart tang adds a lemony punch that makes the bread taste like sunshine squeezed into dough, while caraway's licorice undertone nods to an older ritual. You skim the marginalia loans to local potters and payments to cathedral bell ringers, realizing that bread here doubled as currency and confession. Historians still debate whether sumac's inclusion was culinary innovation or a coded message to hidden Jews. But the flavor remains a testament to resilience. A sudden clatter draws your attention. An inquisitor's envoy has arrived to inspect the iron-bound door. You pinch a shard of brittle spice and slip it into your mouth, letting its smoky heat embolden you. The bakers freeze, then resume kneading, as if nothing's amiss, like actors in a play who carry on even when the director walks on stage. You swallow quietly, grit and courage mingling on your tongue. Through a tiny slit in the door, the emissary's lantern light glints off copper pots. Doña Esther carefully slides a tray of plain olive oil flatbreads across the table, hiding the rosemary-infused loaves beneath. She whispers, "If anyone asks, these are just simple panis rusticus. You probably won't survive the lies if you're squeamish, but in this world, deception is the baker's best leavening agent." Minutes later, the emissary's shadow retreats, and the bakers exhale in unison, as if releasing a collective prayer. You take a moment to trace the spice-streaked counter with your fingertips, marveling at the layers of survival etched into every groove. The cracked mortar, the patched cloth stamps, the ledger's coded entries, they're all ingredients in a recipe for cultural perseverance. As you prepare to leave, Matteo hands you a small packet of saintly spice dust with a wink. He says it's traditional to sprinkle it over your doorway on feast days, a talisman to protect against illness and inquisitors alike. You tuck the packet into your cloak, feeling its gritty weight like a promise. Above, the new moon's curve is hidden by drifting clouds, yet the ritual persists in darkness. In the previous part, you witnessed royal kitchens and hidden converso blends. Now you've seen how adaptation under fear forged new traditions that would outlast the Inquisition's flames. You step back into the moonlit street, every breath flavored by paprika, and resolve ready to follow the next twist in our spiced journey. You slip through the heavy wooden doors of the synagogue's courtyard just as the first lanterns ignite, casting gentle pools of golden light across the cobblestones. The air is thick with the warmth of oil lamps and the faint whisper of ancient prayers drifting from the ark inside. You probably won't survive more than a minute without blinking at the sheer beauty of it all. Imagine stepping into a candlelit cathedral where every wall hums with memory. Here, under the soft glow, you find yourself amidst a tapestry of communal new moon celebrations, where spiced hilalit loaves and honey-drizzled crescents await your eager hands. You walk past long wooden tables heaped with aromatic breads flecked with cinnamon, ginger, and star anise. Each loaf is crowned with a single olive branch, an olfactory salute to peace and new beginnings. You inhale deeply. The faint tang of olive mingles with the warmth of clove and the cozy sweetness of honey, wrapping around your senses like an ASMR hug. It feels more relaxing than your best spa day playlist, yet oddly more intimate, because here, every breath you take connects you not just to the present moment, but to centuries of whispered blessings. As you settle onto a linen-draped bench, you notice families gathering, grandparents swapping tales of caravans and exiles, parents gently guiding children's hands to tear off spiced morsels, and toddlers giggling as crumbs rain onto the stone floor. A plate of mayamul cookies, studded with date paste and a hint of rosewater, beckons from a corner. You pop one into your mouth and taste how the buttery crumb gives way to a floral sigh, rosewater's soft kiss, followed by date's earthy sweetness. 3 light jokes bubble up. It's sweeter than your last unexpected compliment, more layered than a celebrity podcast, and definitely cozier than binging your favorite comfort sitcom. In the corner, the rabbi steps forward, his voice low and sonorous, reciting the Rosh Chodesh blessing. You lean in, letting the cadence wash over you, Baruch Atah, and marvel at how the words feel like fingers stroking the strings of time itself. A popular historical event surfaces in 1918 during the last new moon celebration before World War I's end. Synagogue congregations across Eastern Europe gathered in makeshift tents and bomb shelters, sharing hilalit by lantern light, while distant artillery boomed like a wrathful drum. Historians still debate whether those wartime feasts were acts of defiance or desperate clutches at normalcy, but your heart shudders at the image of faith holding firm amid chaos. You turn your attention back to the feast. A small brass pot of honey sesame dip glimmers its surface, rippling like liquid amber. You dip a crescent of spiced bread in and feel the sticky sweetness coat your fingertips like drizzling molten gold on your phone case, except edible and 100% Instagram-worthy without filters. You pull the bread-free sticky thread stretching between loaf and pot and taste the heady blend of cinnamon's warmth, ginger's zing, and sesame's nutty depth. Even the simplest dip here feels like a culinary handshake across ages. At the far end of the table, a group of musicians lifts delicate flutes and a frame drum. They begin to play a soft melody, an oud-like drone undercut by lilting flute notes that feels like ancestral lullabies made audible. You close your eyes and sway slightly, the music vibrating through your chest as effectively as your favorite bass-heavy track, only gentler. A strange fact flits through your mind. Some Sephardic communities would pause the music at the precise moment the new moon's crescent first peaked above the horizon, as if sound could honor the sky's silent arrival. You imagine an ASMR fan hitting pause on your playlist exactly at moonrise, almost too perfect to be true. You glance at the children clustered near a low table covered in ribboned baskets. They're decorating mini hilalets with colored sugar and nigella seeds, painting each crescent with patterns that mirror Hebrew letters. The workshop buzzes with focused murmurs, surely cuter than any viral kids crafting video you've seen online. One little girl looks up flowers smudged on her cheek and hands you her creation with a proud grin. You taste the crumb-powdered sugar's chill meets cardamom's whisper, sealing the moment in your taste memory. A hush falls as the rabbi gestures toward the ark. Families rise bread in hand and approach one by one to recite personal blessings beneath the scrolls. You join the line heart, fluttering like a candle flame in a draft. When your turn comes, you hold your spiced crescent close, murmur a brief prayer, then break it over the parchment's sacred beak and tuck a crumb into your pocket. That crumb will travel with you, a silent reminder that you too belong to this tapestry of memory and hope. After the blessings, you make your way to an outdoor courtyard where lanterns hang from olive branches. A gentle breeze carries the citrus scent of orange blossoms from nearby trees. You sip from a silver goblet of spiced wine infused with pomegranate seeds and cinnamon bark, an ode to abundance and renewal. Its flavor is surprisingly light tart juice, cut by warming spice like a festive mocktail before the party's main event. You probably won't survive mixing that at home without a proper cocktail shaker, but here, no one minds your amateur flair. A storyteller takes center stage recounting the legend of the hilalet's origin in a lilting Ladino dialect. You listen as she weaves the tale of a baker whose daughter dreamed of the moon's crescent, guiding her flock home, inspiring him to fashion bread in its image, and inadvertently creating a ritual that would outlast empires. A sentence anchors itself in your mind. Historians still debate whether this legend arose from a single baker's dream or evolved from older moon worship customs, but the enduring ritual speaks for itself. You chuckle, imagining those sheep guiding flocks by slicing through night skies. The festival drifts on into the night. You lean against a fountain where water trickles over mosaic tiles, and clusters of spices on nearby tables reflect lamplight like jeweled baubles. You taste one last nibble of hilalet, its spices mellow, now softened by communal warmth and the slow dance of laughter around you. 3 light jokes flicker. This celebration is more connected than your group chat's midnight banter, more fragrant than your favorite scented candle, and definitely more inclusive than any nightclub you've sneaked into. As the moon's sliver climbs higher, you feel a gentle drowsiness wash over you, the product of sugar spice soft music and shared ritual. In the previous part, you weathered palace intrigue and hidden blends. Here, you've tasted solidarity baked into every crust. You tuck your hands into your coat pockets, one finger still sticky with honey, and let the courtyard's lullaby of water music and whispered blessings carry you softly toward the next chapter. Ahead lies the tale of a lost rabbi's secret recipe and the centuries-long quest to reclaim it. But for now, in this gilded moment of unity, you savor the feeling that you are exactly where you belong, nourished by bread, bound by tradition, and cradled by history's quiet embrace. You step into a dim chamber stacked with leather-bound tomes, the air swirling with the musty scent of old parchment and faint traces of cardamom dust. Lantern light flickers against high-arched shelves lined with manuscripts bound in goatskin, some cracked, others gilded with tiny Hebrew letters. This is the hidden library of Rabbi Shalev, the legendary 16th century sage who penned a secret spice formula so potent that his followers whispered it could summon blessings or ward off nightmares. You probably won't survive more than a minute here without sneezing up a cloud of centuries-old dust. But urgency drives your quest to unearth the recipe that vanished after Shalev's sudden disappearance from Seift in 1583. Your fingertips skim a brittle note scrawled in cramped ink. If the moon hides, seek the seashell's glow. You sense the thrill of a treasure hunt as you cradle the slip between thumb and forefinger, its edges frayed like an ancient map. Lantern wax drips onto the page, releasing a floral tang that mingles unexpectedly with the faint aroma of black pepper lodged in the binding. Each manuscript here is a breadcrumb leading back to Shalev's original instructions. A blend of anise rose petals and a mysterious amber tears ingredient that no one has definitively identified. A strange fact, few people know. Some scholars believe amber tears refers not to fossil resin, but to ambergris, a rare whale byproduct prized in perfumery, making Shalev's recipe dangerously expensive. You follow a trail of marginalia, tiny notes in the margins of Kabbalistic commentaries that point toward a tucked-away volume labeled Sefer Harazim, the Book of Secrets. The cover is embossed with a crescent moon and 7 tiny stars, each star a violet gemstone inset centuries ago. You press the gemstone, and with a creak, the shelf swings open to reveal a narrow alcove. Inside stands a single glass vial filled with powder, so black it seems to swallow the lantern's glow. Your pulse quickens as you hold the vial up Shalev's ember spice, the faded label proclaims. You probably won't survive a sniff of that concentrated blend without coughing for a week, but temptation wins. A careful waft reveals a complex aroma, the warmth of ginger, the whisper of rose, and an undercurrent of something metallic, almost like blood or iron, an ingredient rumored to sharpen spiritual insight. Flash forward to 1896, when Solomon Schechter's expedition to the Cairo Geniza unearthed fragments of Shalev's correspondence. In one tattered letter, Shalev describes his recipe as a tapestry of earth and sky, instructing disciples to gather saffron under the new moon and to crush coriander seeds with a ruby mortar. That discovery ignited scholarly fervor. Leading journals of the day published exuberant articles speculating on the formula's potency. Historians still debate whether the scribbled instructions in Geniza fragments truly represent Shalev's original blend, or if they're later additions by admirers seeking to cloak alchemy and mystic language. You tilt the vial to pour a pinch of the black powder into your palm. Your skin prickles at its intensity, then press it gently to your nose. A rush of spice floods your senses, cinnamon's smoky hug, cloves' sharp jab, and something almost marine like the kiss of a salt breeze. You can almost taste the ocean spray mingling with the sweetness of dates, a culinary echo of the Mediterranean coasts where Shalev once taught. 3 light jokes flit through your mind. It's richer than your last 8-step skincare routine, stronger than your morning espresso double shot, and probably more secretive than your browser's incognito mode. But the vial is only half the journey. You cross to a polished oak table where a faded recipe scroll lies rolled up in silk. You unfurl it carefully, avoiding the creases that have set into the parchment like wrinkles on an elder's face. The scroll lists steps in a flowing cursive steep pistachio kernels in rose-infused oil, stir in honey reserved from Rosh Chodesh celebrations, then fold in the amber tears under a roof of cedar smoke. You imagine bakers of old gathering cedar boughs, igniting them just so, and breathing in resinous plumes as they knead dough by candlelight. A sudden gust from a hidden window rattles the chamber's seals, scattering loose spice flecks across the floor. You bend to catch them, each grain a vestige of Shalev's craft. You recall from the previous part how communal feasts wove bonds across generations. Here, a single misplaced seed could crack the code of centuries. You gather the flecks and press them back into the vial, your hands trembling as though holding stardust. Your eyes travel to a dusty shelf where 3 colored bottles stand, a cobalt jar labeled Under the New Moon, a jade vial reading Amber Brow, and a simple clay pot with no label. You twist off the cobalt jar's stopper and inhale a gentle waft of cardamom, so bittersweet it stings your throat with nostalgia. The jade vial yields a heady perfume of sandalwood and myrrh aromatic anchors for the recipe's spiritual dimension. Yet the clay pot is the most compelling. You pry it open to reveal coarse white crystals that glitter like fallen stars. A strange fact surfaces. Local legend holds that these are crushed bones from the Red Sea, more myth than mineral, yet many swear by their protective power when baked into hilalit. Historians still debate whether these bones were genuine relics or simply colored seashells meant to evoke maritime mystique. With all ingredients gathered, you retreat to a long-forgotten kitchen adjacent to the library, a tiny alcove with a stone hearth so cold it feels like winter's grip. You pile the powders, cinnamon cloves, ambergris, or amber tears alongside crushed cedar rosewater infused oil and the glimmering white crystals. You add them to a mound of soft dough, then knead slowly, listening to the soft slap as spices integrate into the wheat. Each turn of the dough murmurs secret stories from Shalev's own hands, translated into aromatic resonance. You shape the mixture into a long braid, weaving layers of aroma into a single strand. As you work, you taste of fingertips smear tangy cedar sweet rose and something electric that prickles the tongue. You think of Shalev stirring this very dough under moonlight, chanting blessings between folds. A popular historical story recalls that on one new moon night, Shalev's loaf cured a fevered child of noble birth, earning him reputation and reverence. But historians still debate whether that miracle stemmed from genuine pharmacology or simply a comforting placebo effect bolstered by ritual. Sliding the braid into an ember-warmed oven, you pull the heavy door closed behind you. The hearth's hush feels like a pause in time. You smell the cedar smoke drift through cracks, lifting spices like incense in a temple. You lean against the cold stone heart, pounding with anticipation. In a few moments, the hush will break into a crackle, and the recipe hidden for centuries will emerge whole again, its flavors a living bridge between past and present. As you exhale, the chamber seems to breathe with you, its shadows dancing in the lantern's glow. The previous part delivered communal unity. Here you're on the verge of reclaiming a lost legacy, one bite away from tasting history itself. You close your eyes and let the spice-scented memories swirl, ready for the next chapter where diaspora innovations transform this reclaimed recipe into new expressions across the globe. You step off the canal's slick cobblestones into a bright, airy bakehouse in Amsterdam's Jodenbuurt, the faint tang of river mist merging with the sweet haze of freshly baked hilalit. You draw in a long breath, tasting hints of orange blossom and cardamom, riding on the crisp autumn air flavors you never would have imagined pairing until Sephardic refugees carried their spice-laden traditions northward. The windows are flung open to catch breezes drifting from the North Sea, carrying whispers of sea salt that mingle unexpectedly with saffron's golden warmth like a surprise duet between land and surf. You probably won't survive a winter in clogs without a loaf like this to warm your bones, but these bakers thrive turning exile into innovation. Across the marble counter, you spot a tray of hilalit flecked with candied citron peel brought from North African orchards by merchants plying the Mediterranean. The translucent strips glint like tiny sunbeams trapped in sugar, offering a tart counterpoint to cinnamon's cozy embrace. In Moroccan Jewish communities, wanderers adopted local citrus to brighten their new moon breads, believing the fruit's sunny acidity would ward off winter's gloom. A popular historical moment emerges in 1654 when a fleet of Sephardic ships landed in Recife, Brazil. Bakers there combined Brazilian sugarcane with spices from Alexandria, birthing hybrid loaves that historians still debate whether they should be called Brazilian Sephardic or simply the world's first fusion cuisine. Either way, the recipes crossed oceans as bravely as their creators. You lean closer to a bowl of poppy seeds, tiny oil bombs that glisten under lamplight, perfect for sprinkling on crescent rims. In Hamburg's Altona Quarter, local cooks embrace these western spices, coaxing almonds and poppy into hilalit variations known as Moritzbrot, a nod to Morocco, but baked with German precision. You pinch a seed and roll it between your teeth. The nutty rush blends seamlessly with ginger's biting clarity, the contrast like hearing Gregorian chant under a desert night sky. It's a sensory bridge that whispers of caravanserais in Fez and Hanseatic ships in the Elbe. Behind you, a line of apprentices stirs dough infused with muted rosewater and sweet beet syrup a window into 18th century Amsterdam's sugar beet boom. When Caribbean cane shipments dipped, bakers turned to northern fields boiling down beets for their own sweetener. You probably won't survive a colony's sugar shortage without improvisation. But these bakers proved resilient, drizzling syrup into hilalit wells like sunlit treasures. A strange fact, few people know some Dutch Sephardic recipes swapped out honey entirely for burnt sugar syrup, creating a caramelized loaf that crackled unpredictably under each bite. You watch as a master baker molds a hilalit studded with smoked juniper berries harvested from the dunes of Zealand and crushed coriander from former Ottoman lands. The juniper's piney snap cuts through the dough's richness like a sea breeze through a tavern door, surprising yet invigorating. This Nordic twist emerged when trade routes brought juniper aboard Viking-style sloops repurposed for spice transport. Historians still debate whether those boats were sturdy enough for open ocean voyages or confined themselves to sheltered fjords. But the barrels of juniper clearly found their way into the ovens, leaving a flavor footprint as jagged as the coast. You step over powdered sugar footprints leading to a window overlooking the canal and spot a small rose garden on the sill grown by a gardener who crossed from Tangier generations ago. His red petals supply the distillery that drips rosewater into hilalit today, each drop a living fragment of homeland. You inhale the floral perfume and imagine gardens of Andalusia and Marrakech layered one atop another in your senses. 3 light jokes flick through your mind. This is more floral than your favorite indie perfume, fancier than your last craft cocktail, and definitely more poetic than any dating app bio you've ever read. The bakehouse bell chimes overhead, and you realize these diaspora innovations weren't confined to Amsterdam alone. In Salonika, bakers folded olive paste and za'atar into new moon breads. In Livorno, they added lemon zest and fennel seed. In Buenos Aires, they stirred in dulce de leche and a pinch of chimichurri spice. Each community stamped its silhouette onto the hilalit, like signing a communal diary with edible ink. You probably won't survive hopping continents in a single afternoon, but your palate travels with ease. You bite into a slice of today's specialty, an almond-scented braid coiled into a crescent and ambered with burnt sugar glaze, and taste a mosaic of histories, the sharper bite of juniper, the sweet echo of beet syrup, the golden glow of saffron, and that final whisper of Moroccan orange. The flavors spiral outward like smoke rings, carrying stories of exiles, merchants, and homecoming. Amid the warm hum of conversation and the gentle hiss of cooling ovens, you remember previous chapters, palace grandeur, hidden converso kitchens, and reclaimed secret recipes. All of it led here to this vibrant nexus where diaspora innovation turned survival into celebration. As you lean back, the gentle lapping of canal waters outside seems to harmonize with the bakehouse's rhythm. You feel the pulse of centuries under your fingertips and the weight of countless hands shaping dough just like yours. A sentence drifts through your mind. Historians still debate whether these local adaptations were acts of assimilation or radical affirmations of identity. But the taste of resilience knows no such boundaries. You smile at the paradox, knowing that in every fold and twist of the hilalit, diaspora communities wove together past and present exile and belonging, spice and memory. With the last crumb warm on your tongue, you stand brushing flour from your hands as lantern light dances on the walls. The next chapter seeks modern chefs resurrecting ancient loaves, blending tradition with innovation under neon lights and Instagram feeds. But for now, you carry the taste of diaspora triumph forward, ready to see how this living heritage continues to evolve in kitchens around the globe. You step into a sleek studio kitchen bathed in cool LED light where stainless steel counters gleam like polished mirrors and camera rigs hover overhead. The air carries a whisper of saffron and cardamom, threaded through the hum of blenders and the hiss of steam wands. It feels like a cross between a gourmet lab and a YouTube set, definitely more high-tech than your grandma's wood-fired oven. You probably won't survive a minute of this social media-fueled pace without tripping over a cable, but the promise of resurrecting ancient spiced breads keeps your curiosity in overdrive. At the heart of this renaissance stands celebrated chef Yotam Ottolenghi, whose 2012 Notting Hill pop-up introduced saffron-tinged hilalit to a global audience. His recipe croissants, reimagined with cinnamon honey and nigella, sent food blogs into a frenzy, sparking a worldwide obsession. Within weeks, Ottolenghi crescents trended on Instagram, followed by countless TikTok duets. A popular historical moment in modern baking, no doubt, but also a reminder that one viral recipe can rewrite culinary history overnight. You glide past a team of pastry chefs clad in charcoal gray aprons, each meticulously folding spiced dough into perfect crescents, using memory foam gloves and silicone mats. They laugh softly as they dust the loaves with edible gold dust and Instagrammable flourish that twinkles like fairy lights. A strange fact, some avant-garde bakers in Copenhagen experimented with spirulina-dyed hilalit shaped like moon phases, a nod to the night sky, so vivid it made ASMR fans swoon. On a marble-topped island home, bakers mingle with food tech entrepreneurs, sampling spice-infused steam clouds produced by liquid nitrogen canisters. Imagine sipping a cloud of cinnamon vapor that vanishes the moment it hits your tongue. You probably won't survive that level of theatricality in your own kitchen, but here it's celebrated as the cutting edge of culinary performance art. 3 light jokes tickle your thoughts. It's spicier than your last Twitter feud, more dramatic than your go-to reality TV finale, and definitely bolder than your average weekend sourdough experiment. A projection on the back wall shows footage from the 2015 Terra Madre Conference, where slow food advocates first showcased spiced crescent breads alongside heirloom grains. Producers from Puglia and Andalusia presented hilalit infused with ancient wheat varieties, drawing applause when they passed plates through the crowd. Historians still debate whether that event marked the true turning point in hilalit's revival or merely a fashionable detour in the slow food movement, but either way it galvanized chefs and farmers to reclaim lost grains and ancient spice blends. Nearby, a live stream broadcasts a workshop led by influencer Delilah Mendez, whose Midnight Moon Loaves tutorial has amassed millions of views. She whispers ASMR style into her mic as she brushes dough with rosewater glaze and sprinkles cinnamon sugar stardust. You lean in, absorbing every soft shh and the gentle scrape of her silicone brush, a modern echo of medieval courtyards now optimized for earbud-clad audiences worldwide. On a list pinned to a corkboard, homebrew enthusiasts share notes. I used a 5-year-old sourdough starter from my local bakery, one writes, and it tangs the hilalit just enough to remind me of fermented barley days and safe. You smile at their devotion. Nothing says culinary archaeology like nurturing a microbe community for half a decade just to prove your loaf tastes authentic. In another corner, a Michelin-starred pastry chef unveils a tasting flight miniature hilalit bites flavored with Tunisian rosebuds, Ethiopian nigella, and Spanish smoked paprika. Each morsel arrives on a slice of slate accompanied by a drop of date vinegar gastrique. The interplay of flavors is precise enough to make you question every grocery store baguette you've ever bought. Beyond the counters, a long table hosts the New Moon Bread Festival, an annual pop-up in Shoreditch where bakers from Melbourne to Madrid gather under hanging string lights. You nibble a cross-cultural creation, a chai-spiced hilalit. Served alongside a smear of tahini date paste, it tastes like diaspora dreams landed in your mouth, so vivid you almost miss your last 3 email alerts. As the night deepens, panels discuss tech and tradition, how 3D printed molds now shape hilalit, with lunar crater patterns and AI-driven ovens adjust humidity and temperature in real time to perfect spice caramelization. You probably won't survive relying on algorithms to bake your next loaf, but witnessing these innovations feels like peeking into a sci-fi kitchen where the past and future knead together. Through a glass wall, you glimpse small batch farmers drying turmeric and sumac in solar tunnels, an eco-friendly spin on medieval spice preservation. They swear by solar oven kilns that mimic Ottoman court methods, harnessing daylight to lock in aroma. It's heartening to see millennia-old techniques paired with modern sustainability goals. On a communal bench Enthusiasts break open crescent breads, sharing tidbits. The beet syrup twist I tried last week gave it a caramel tang that lasted days, says one. Another adds, I dusted mine with lavender sugar, and it blossomed like spring at midnight. Each variation is a tribute to tradition and reinvention, a living library of taste. In the previous part, you traced diaspora innovations across continents. Here, you witnessed the global community rallying to revive, reinterpret, and rebrand those ancient loaves. The Hilalit's legacy lives on not just in old cookbooks, but in live stream tutorials, food festivals, and makerspace spice labs. You lean against a chrome rail, inhaling the heady spice haze and the low murmur of excitement. Lantern light has given way to neon LEDs, but the essence remains community memory and the gentle curve of a moon-shaped loaf. As you pocket a final crumb tinged with saffron's sunlit glow and cinnamon's comforting hug, you realize this modern renaissance is more than a trend. It's a testament to resilience, creativity, and the human urge to flavor time itself. And as you step away from the bustle of this modern spice atelier, you carry with you the knowledge that tomorrow's chefs will mix new blends, forge fresh traditions, and continue kneading history into something you can taste, touch, and share under every rising moon. You sink into a plush armchair in a softly lit study, the hush of the world outside muffled by heavy drapes and the distant hum of nocturnal life. A single brass lamp casts a gentle pool of light over your lap, illuminating a worn, leather-bound volume that traces the journey of Hilalit from dusty courtyards to gleaming studio kitchens. You feel the weight of every chapter you've lived through the exile of 1492, the lunar watches on Jerusalem's hills, the spice caravans across Anatolia, the hush of converso kitchens, the clatter of royal courts, the unity of synagogue gatherings, the thrill of hidden recipes, the bloom of diaspora innovations, and the dance of modern revival. You probably won't survive attempting to recount all that in one breath without running out of air. But here, in this quiet moment, each memory settles like a comforting exhale. Your fingertips trace a gilded map showing the diaspora's paths, arrows from Toledo to Salonika, from Safed to Amsterdam, from Recife to Buenos Aires. You recall the 2010 UNESCO listing of Sephardic culinary traditions as intangible cultural heritage, a popular milestone that recognized Hilalit's role in binding communities across continents. Historians still debate whether that designation centered on bread shapes and spice blends or focused primarily on Ladino songs sung around the table, but either way it sparked renewed global curiosity. You close your eyes and breathe in, slowly tasting cinnamon's ember-warm embrace on your tongue, followed by ginger's playful spark, and the lingering hum of anise flavors now as familiar as the lull of your own heartbeat. The lamp's glow flickers, and you imagine the arc of the Hilalit's crescent mirrored in the curve of the lamp's shade. A strange fact drifts to your mind in 2023. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station baked a miniature cinnamon swirl loaf in a prototype zero-gravity oven, an experiment that proved spices still float in delightfully unpredictable patterns when gravity loosens its grip. You chuckle softly. Next time NASA should send some saffron, you muse, knowing full well you probably won't survive volunteering for a space baking mission without at least 3 backup oxygen tanks. In the previous chapters, you witnessed Hilalit serve as a compass of identity, turning everyday loaves into silent testimonies of faith, community, and resilience. Now, you let that legacy settle around you, like a soft blanket. You recall the hush that fell at synagogue gatherings, the moment when the rabbi's blessing wove through candlelight and the first bite of honey-drizzled crescent greeted the new moon. You remember how secret converso blends passed between trembling hands in the shadow of Inquisition walls, each morsel a sacred promise. You feel the pride of diaspora bakers who folded Moroccan citrus, Dutch beet syrup, and Brazilian sugar into hilalit, transforming exile's bitterness into a global feast. You rest your cheek against a cushion embroidered with a subtle crescent motif. Its threads a tapestry of golden saffron and deep indigo. You think of modern chefs who coax ancient grains back to life, kneading einkorn and heirloom wheat into dough once flattened by history's weight. You imagine those grain kernels whispering, "We're back," as they soak up water and yeast, ready to rise again under the gentle warmth of a well-tended hearth. A soft smile touches your lips as three light jokes drift through your mind. This farewell is cozier than your favorite cashmere sweater, more aromatic than the fanciest candle you've ever splurged on, and definitely more heartwarming than any streaming service's recommended for you playlist. You stroke the book's cover, gratified by the knowledge that every spice-dusted crumb and every whispered blessing lives on in kitchen seminars and family tables around the world. Above you, beyond the window's frosted pane, the new moon's sliver shines faintly unchanged in its ancient purpose to guide and renew. You lean forward, typing a quick note into your phone. What hilalit variation will you bake next new moon, and send it into the digital current, confident that the conversation will ripple outward. Soon, texts and comments will arrive, recipes exchanged, memories shared, innovations proposed. In that rush of connection, you recognize that hilalit's journey continues, each baker a link in an unbroken chain. You inhale one last time, savoring the complex perfume saffron's glow, cinnamon's hearth, ginger's zest, anise's hush. The room feels smaller now, suffused with the warmth of shared stories and the soft crackle of your own breathing. You stretch your legs, place the leather volume on a nearby side table, and stand. A final flourish of scent drifts from the pages, perhaps a remnant of rosewater pressed between leaves, reminding you that even the written word can carry flavor. As you turn to leave the study, a hush falls over the house. You pause by the doorway, placing a hand on the carved crescent moon motif above the frame, a silent salute to every baker, every spice trader, every hidden recipe scribe, and every modern innovator who kept this tradition alive. You probably won't survive forgetting this touchstone, but you won't let it slip from memory. With a gentle breath, you pocket the lingering aroma of cinnamon and hope, and you step into the corridor where soft carpets swallow your footsteps. The moonlight guides you toward the staircase, each step easing you closer to bed. You pause at the threshold of your bedroom, lingering for a heartbeat, as if to capture the moment in slow motion. Then you close the door behind you, the hush of history settling into the room like a lullaby yet to be sung. You sink into the hush of your own room, the weight of history's gentle arc cradling you like a soft quilt. Your eyelids grow heavy as the moon sliver outside drifts higher, its pale light dancing on the walls in quiet patterns. You feel the warmth of every spice cinnamon's ember glow, ginger's playful spark, anise's soothing hush settle into your bones, weaving comfort through your breath. Let your shoulders drop as you imagine those centuries of bakers, traders, and dreamers, each heartbeat echoing in yours a lullaby of resilience. The scent of honey and saffron lingers in the air, a promise that tomorrow will bring new beginnings as certain as the next new moon. You trace a fingertip along the crescent motif etched into your bedside table, its curve a silent guide toward rest. Softly, you recall the murmur of communal blessings, the crackle of oven embers, the hush of secret kitchens. They all fade now into a tender exhale. Each spice note becomes a fading star twinkling once more before drifting into night's deep velvet. The world outside your window grows distant, its edges softening, until there is only warmth, only peace. Your heartbeat slows sinking with the gentle cadence of history's breath. You feel your body release the day's tension, your mind release its wandering, settling into the soothing rhythm of rest. In the quiet darkness, you are both listener and storyteller, drifting with a smile as memories of fragrant loaves and shared feasts cradle you toward sleep. A soft melody drifts through your thoughts, a lullaby, without words, composed of sweet aromas and whispered prayers. Let it carry you further past the borders of time into fields of spice-laden blossoms and ovens' golden glow, until your dreams rise like dough under the tender light of a rising moon. End of script. Sweet dreams.